Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy Briggs. I'm the manager of Stat Central. Welcome to our September seminar. Today we have one of our consultants, Gordana Popovic, talking to us about visualizing high-dimensional data. First, I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which this meeting takes place. The Gadigal people at Kensington campus, the Gadigal people at Paddington and the Sydney CBD campus, and the Ngunnawal people at the Canberra campus. I would also like to pay my respects to the elders, both past and present, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are present here today. Gordana, just a little bit about Gordana and our unit. We are Stat Central, and we are the statistical consulting unit at the university, and we are tasked with helping researchers across the university design and analyze the data from their studies. So if you are an HDR student or a faculty member in any faculty of the university or any of our affiliated schools or units, then you can come to us for some advice. We also do some teaching and have a program of free monthly seminars that anyone is welcome to attend. And we also do contracted services. So if you have a big project for which you received a grant, you can come to us and hire one of us to help you with your data analysis. And you can find all that information on our website, stats.central at unsw.edu.au. You can book a consultation there, or you can even email us at stats.central@unsw.edu.au. Gordana is one of our consultants, and currently she does some work with the Rural Clinical School. She also works on some various other very interesting projects. She's a specialist in multivariate data, so she does lots of interesting things when you have lots of outcome variables that you want to model all together. And today she's going to be talking to us about how to visualize or visualizing high-dimensional data when you've got lots and lots of variables. Welcome, Gordana.
Thanks, Nancy. Can you hear me okay? Hopefully you can hear me. Okay, so this title tells you why not to suddenly change the title of your talk 5 seconds before, because you will have many typos. Apologies about that. So I'm going to be talking about visualizing high-dimensional data with the tourr package that should be. And so Nancy's talked about Stat Central. So I guess the first slide is just sort of like shout out to plotting your data. So many people that we consult with they haven't plotted their data, even when they've done a bunch of analyses and this regression and that t-test and so on, but actually have never plotted their data to have a look at what it looks like. And why do you do that? Well, it's fun. I really like plotting data. It's the best part of stats often. It allows you to really understand what your data is. You can also use it to generate new ideas for future research or whatever else. But also because statistics can lie to you. So here I've got, say, a scatter plot. So this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. And so I think there's a relationship between X and Y, right? So there's some sort of weird stuff going on, but as X changes, there are different things going on with Y. So for example, when X is small, Y can be either small or very large, but never in the middle. Whereas when X is sort of in the middle, Y tends to be in the middle. So there's definitely a relationship. But if you did a regression on this data set, you would find that there's no relationship between X and Y. And you would get nothing in the results, which would tell you that actually there's this bizarre thing, very interesting and bizarre thing going on. So you should always, on top of doing statistics and before and after doing statistics, plot your data. So that's the first thing. So today we're going to be playing with a data set on olives. It's available in the tourr package, and it's from a study on the classification of oils based on their fatty acid composition. So it has a bunch of variables. Most of them are fatty acids. So all of these here are fatty acids. And then it has two variables, which are region and area. And we'll be playing with the region variable and all of these fatty acids. So that's to keep in mind what we'll be doing. So how do we plot data? Well, if we have one continuous variable, we might do a histogram of that variable. Here's one of the fatty acids, and we can see it's sort of bimodal. There's quite a few plants that have around 1,100, and then quite a few about 1,300 or 1,400, and not so much in the middle. So that's quite interesting to look at. If you're really fancy, you can instead do a density plot, which might look like this. But that's pretty much as far as you can get with with one variable. So that's nice. I should say that please feel free to ask questions, even to interrupt if you want. And maybe one of my colleagues will read them out if there's a question that might be of interest to people. Okay, so that's one variable. And then if we have two continuous variables, well, we do a scatter plot. So here are two of the fatty acids, palmitic and palmitoic. Oh, I'm so bad at pronouncing things, apologies. Okay, so we can see that there's a positive relationship. So as this one increases, when it's higher, this one also tends to be higher. And when this one's lower, this one also tends to be lower. So there's a positive relationship between these two acids. So that's our scatter plot. And then we could also add another discrete variable like region. So there are 3 regions in this data set. And we might find that we can color the dots by region, and we might be able to see some things in here. So for example, we can see that the spread of both of these acids is much larger for region number 1, the red region, than it is for these ones. They're more clustered together, whereas the red region tends to be quite wide range on both of these acids. So that's where we've gotten to. So we've got 2 continuous variables, 1 discrete, and we've pretty much reached the limit on what we can do on paper on a 2-dimensional space. We can add sort of shapes, maybe size, but those things are really get to be quite hard to interpret when you're looking at them. So we've pretty much gotten to as far as we can get with a piece of paper or with a screen. So what if we have more variables? What if we have 3 variables? Well, if we have 3 variables, we sort of know that we can do 2 scatter plots with color for 2 variables. So we just go, well, we'll just do them pairwise, right? So we've got one between these 2 acids, and then one between these 2 acids, and one between these 2 acids. Think, okay, well, there's some information in each of these guys, although the blue ones and the green ones tend to overlap on all of them, and the red ones sort of have this extra bit. We can also look at them 1-dimensionally at a time. So here is just the ptolemaic by the different regions, and here's just a palmiotic. I'm going to go with palmiotic. And steric. I'm going to go steric for this one. Oh, steric is terrible because steric doesn't tell us very much at all by itself. But when you plot it against one of the others, then you can have some structure in the data. But what happens when you do this, when you do pairwise scatter plots, is you're not actually looking at the data in every possible way you could look at it. So the way to think about this is in primary school, you would have had one of these little lessons. So you would have been given a 3D object and asked the plot to draw a picture of the projections of this object. So if you look at it from this side, here is my projection. It just looks like this square, a rectangle rather. And if you look at it from here, from this side, then you get this rectangle. And then if you look at it from the top, well, then you get this sort of L shape. So that's what we're getting when we're doing pairwise scatter plots. We get to see the data from this angle here, and this angle here, but we get nothing else. So for example, the way we're looking at this shape right now is another projection. So really we should be able to get like a shape that looks like the outline of this shape here, if we look at it from a certain angle. So that's the projection from this angle. But when we're doing pairwise scatter plots, all we get is the projections from these angles. And we can get more information if we are allowed to look at all the different projections of a data set. So that's what we want to do. So here's a Mario. He's also being projected in various directions. Mario has colors, and so I wanted to pop this in here because you can see that, for example, the top of Mario, the projection from the top looks a bit different than the projection from the bottom. And the projection from the back is different from the projection from the front. So that's also true. You know, if you have colors, then the things can look different. It's not just a shadow, but it's also colors in there. Okay, so what can we do? Well, there are 3D plotting tools. There's one in R, which I struggle to use, but I gave it a go. So this is a different projection. So we had those pairwise scatter plots, which were from one of the three axes, but now we're kind of at an angle to those axes, so we can look at it from a different direction. And from this direction, you can see more of a separation between the red and the green up here. The blue has disappeared. I think it's behind all of them. I'm not sure what's happened here. And then you can turn it around. And I guess if you're really patient, you can try to plot this from every possible direction and try to see if you can see any structures that you couldn't see in the pairwise scatter plot. So a convenient way to do this is using the tourr package. So instead of having to plot every possible projection, it'll just take you through an animation of those. So what's one of the basic things that you can do? So here is, I'm using, I wonder if you can see this, or should I make it a little bit? I'm going to zoom in a bit. You don't really need to see the code, but anyhow. So I'm using the tourr package, and I'm going to use the animate XY function. Oh, somebody mentioned. Animate XY. So I'm going to take, so the olive data set, I'm going to take those three assets that we were plotting pairwise earlier, and then I'm going to plot them using an animation. So if I do that, hopefully this will work. Could not find animate, that's good. Okay, so here we go. It's a little bit funny. It sometimes jumps a little bit, sometimes less and sometimes more. Oh, that's not going very well, is it? I think it's because, all right, that shouldn't have happened. I think it's because I have both the projection and I'm online presenting to you guys and trying to do this at the same time. So it crashed on me. It doesn't generally do that. Let me just restart. Oh, now yeah. Somebody said the ideal would be a 3D 360-degree rotating plot. And that's exactly what I'm trying to give you right now, if my computer would cooperate, which it isn't. 1 second while I recover my calm. Okay, we're back. We're back. My computer's stopped freaking out. I will provide the codes. Thank you for the question. You will have to bear with me as a moment, though. It's a good time for your computer to give up right in the middle of a seminar. Very, very helpful. Okay, I'm going to try again. Okay. I'm just going to close a bunch of things so that everything is okay. Hopefully you can see that. All right, so I'm trying to do like a bit of a fly through. If this is not going to work, then we're going to have a very hard time of this seminar. Oh. So once it stops jumping, when it's not jumping, you can see that we're just flying through like around these dots. So we've just got like a little drone and we're flying in all dimensions around these dots. And this is not supposed to happen. And I think I can stop it if I do some on the fly things. Oh, jeez. Yeah, it's not even the package. It's just being unhelpful because of the, I think it's because of the screen sharing. I'm just trying to figure out how to make it less. You can export them to HTML, but I didn't. Yes. Unfortunately, I didn't get time. What people normally do is they create like sort of a sequence of them and then they export them to HTML. Okay, I'm going to give it a go. In Zoom, it doesn't seem to mind when I screen share and do this, but I guess so this analysis, there's no analysis involved. Somebody said, how much time does it take to run this analysis? It takes 0 time. I'm just running this code and it's just cycling through. It's just kind of flying around and looking at the data in different random directions. So it sort of doesn't have a path. Well, it sort of does it smoothly, but it kind of just flies around wherever it feels like in sort of a sphere around the data, if that makes some sense. So it's just kind of an animated way to look through a three-dimensional space. So hopefully you get an idea of that. Also, you can tell which direction things change in. For example, so now we've got the green and the red are over here. So, and the black is sort of lower towards the lower half. So it's the opposite direction from STR. So the black tends to be more when STR is low. That's what that means because it's pointing in the opposite direction of STR. Any more questions? Aha, what if you have more than 4 variables? I love this question. We will definitely come to that. Okay, good question. What if you have more than 3 variables? Okay. All right, so that was that 3D fly through. So the tourr package can be used for that. So what if we have higher dimensions? So that was Matt's question. Did I miss any questions? I don't think I did. Okay, so what if we have like higher dimensions? Like what if I said, what is the 4th dimension? Well, people generally get a picture in their head of something like this, sort of space-time is the 4th dimension, and then the 5th dimension might be like multiple universes or some other thing. So that is not what I mean by high-dimensional data. In maths, we don't actually think of the 4th dimension as any different from the 3rd dimension or the 2nd dimension. Dimensions are just variables in your data set when you're thinking about them mathematically or statistically. So if you have 7 variables, like we have 7 amino acids, that's a 7-dimensional space that we want to explore. And that's all that we mean by that. Now, So we have a bunch of tools to deal with high dimensional data and statistics. So one of them is principal component analysis, if you're familiar with that. So if you have a high dimensional space, you can sort of collapse it intelligently to a lower dimensional space and plot that. There's also multidimensional scaling, linear discriminant analysis. These are all sort of similar methods that sort of reduce your data to a smaller number of dimensions so you can more easily visualize it. Regression is also another method where we think about data being multivariate and we predict some variables based on others. Then another thing is projection pursuit, and that's what we're going to talk about here. So yeah, so high dimensions in maths and stats. I don't know if you've read this book. It's an excellent book called Flatland. It's a romance of many dimensions. It's about a bunch of two-dimensional people who live on like a piece of paper in 2 dimensions. And it's a really good thing to help you understand, or it helped me understand the sort of how more dimensions work. So here is kind of what we're going to be doing. So this diagram builds up in dimensions. So first we start with 0 dimensions. There's just no distance in any direction. And then if we have 1 dimension, this is like the space of our histograms. So we have dimension left to right. And then if we add another dimension, that's, depth. So here is like if we have 2 dimensions, we have 2 variables, we do a scatter plot. And the thing to notice is that, this dimension, the green dimension, is at right angles to the red dimension. And then when we move to 3 variables, well, we just add like depth to that. Now, we know because we've been taught that all of these are at right angles to each other. So we know that this looks like a little die, but on this diagram, these are not right angles. So you can see this angle here is not at all a right angle, nor is that one. So these angles are not right angles, but we know that it's a right angle. And what we have here is we've projected this cube onto 2-dimensional paper. So we've looked at it from a particular direction, and the projection is just kind of the shadow from that direction of this cube. And so there's no reason we can't continue to add directions at right angles to all of these 3 directions. So the gray one is now at right angles to everything. Now, of course, on the paper, it's not. It's not at right angles to anything at all, but in reality, it is at right angles to everything. And we can still project this hypercube onto this 2-dimensional page in a way that preserves information about it. And so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be trying to project things in high dimensions onto lower dimensions in a way that lets us visualize it from all different directions. It says so Tiston asked if NDS plots can be visualized using tourr. Yes, the very last bit of this seminar, we'll talk about that a little bit. Okay, so hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So we're going to be projecting things, high dimensional things, 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, it doesn't really matter. We're just still going to project it onto 2 dimensions. So this is how we're going to do it. Hopefully this won't freak out again too much. Oops, there we go. Okay. Of course, it's already freaking out. Really helpful. Okay, so I'm going to do, just for kicks, a 3-dimensional cube, so just a normal cube that everybody is used to. And I'm going to, project it from all kinds of random directions. So I'm just going to float around this cube and look at it from different directions, and that's what it looks like. Now, the thing to notice is the angles between all the sides change all the time, so they're hardly ever, freaking out, they're hardly ever right angles, but we know that the angles are right angles anyway. But it doesn't stop us being able to gain information from these plot. So what if we had a 4-dimensional cube? Could we project a 4-dimensional cube? So this is what that looks like. I wonder if I close what's behind this, it might help. No, doesn't help. Hopefully sometimes you can see it. Oh dear. There is a good GIF on this. Okay, I'm just going to try again. Might be better next time. Okay, what about if I do this? It's not any better, is it? This was supposed to be a very interesting looking thing. Okay. Okay. Stop again. Somebody. Can you save the HTML locally? Not like without some codes that I don't know how to do, Matt. I'm sorry. There is a way to do this. I just have no idea how. I think it involves a little bit of coding that I haven't done. Yeah, you can definitely save them, but anyway, you can see that this is the hypercube. There's actually a good GIF of this, but I haven't saved it. I'm going to try one more time. You can sort of see what's happening. So we're sort of flying around this 4-dimensional hypercube, and we're projecting it into 2 dimensions so that we can visualize it on our computers. Okay, that one went better than the others. At least I felt like it was a little bit better. Okay, so what does that mean for our data? So we can also do that to the olive oil data. Now I'm not going to stick, can I generate HTML with Markdown? Yeah, it won't. Jason, thank you. It's a good idea. I did try that, but it actually just plots multiple plots. It doesn't make a moving thing. So yeah, you do have to do a little bit of magic to get it to actually work as a GIF. So what I'm going to do now is so I've got 8 amino acids in olive. So I'm not going to stick to 4 dimensions. I'm going to go straight to 8 dimensions. And I'm going to project from 8 dimensions into 1 dimension and fly around this 8-dimensional space the same way as we did for that cube, hopefully. Okay. Come on. Be good. So since this is colorful, it's less, you can still sort of see what's going on even though it's flashing like crazy. So I've got now 8 dimensions. You probably won't remember, but there wasn't any pairwise scatter plot of this data that actually separated all of the greens from the reds from the blacks. So we're trying to kind of go around and see if we can get a projection where we can get a good separation between these colors. So far hasn't been absolutely great, but now we're kind of getting to a point where, okay, if we stop here, oh, I think I stopped too late. But you saw that there was one projection where the greens and the reds and the blacks were completely separated. So that doesn't necessarily need to happen when you're at one of the pairwise scatter plotty sort of directions. It could happen in sort of any direction in this 8-dimensional space. And so by projecting all around in every possible direction, you can often see bits of structure in your data that you wouldn't be able to see by doing pairwise scatter plots. Okay, I'm very afraid of what's going to happen next. Let me see if I'm supposed to be talking about anything else. Yeah, okay. So this bit actually is hard for the computer. So those things are actually reasonably simple to do for R. There's not much computation to do. So the problem is with the plotting, like it doesn't refresh at a very high rate, the R Studio window. So that's one of the reasons that it skips like that. Although when I'm not sharing screen, it's nothing like that. But so So those were all tours where I just fly around randomly. So the program just picks random points around the hypersphere of where all this data exists, and then sort of smoothly goes between any 2 points, and then picks a new point, and then picks a new point, and sort of kind of does that slightly smoothly so that you can see what's going on. But what if I really was interested in separating the data somehow? So I can use a guide, what's called a guided tour, and that will let me separate by, for example, a categorical variable. So the region variable is column 1 of Olive. Oh, R is already freaking out. I don't have great hopes for this, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a guided tool. And I'm going to tell it that I want it to separate by the region variable if it can. So I'm going to start this and see how we go. Yeah, it's going really well. You can see. Anyway, I'll give you all this code so you can do it yourself. So it's kind of just spinning around at the moment. But once it sort of starts to separate the reds from the greens, it will start to move in a direction where the separation is more and more. And it sort of calculates a statistic to try to do that. And these are all projection pursuit type techniques. So you can see now that looking at it from this vantage point, there's almost no overlap between the reds and the greens and the blacks. So they're really well separated in this direction. So I'm just going to let it finish so that it stops spinning around. And then I will point out some things for you that we couldn't see when it's all flashy. Oh, is it still going? Oh, it's still going. It's very excited about it. Okay, I think it's going to stop now. It's almost gotten to a point where there's no blacks in the red region and so on. So it's very excited. Okay, I think it's done. So what have we got going on here? Well, okay, the blacks are all down here. So this is now 8-dimensional data. These gray arrows, they point in the direction of each dimension, and how big they are is how much you're oriented towards that direction. So if they're very small, then that direction goes sort of off into the distance at an angle, but we're not slanted towards that direction, whereas we are more or less slanted towards the ECS and ARC direction for the most part. Now, ECS goes along this axis. So what that tells us is that variable by itself is actually very good at separating between these regions. So when ECS is very small, then it's green. When ECS is sort of in the middle, then it's red. And then for higher values of ECS, it's black. And then these ones so ARC also sort of separates the green and the red a bit by saying that, well, the green happens along the whole gradient of ARC, but the red only happens in the positive side. So this is the positive side because that's where it's pointing. And so ARC only happens, the reds only happen in the positive side of ARC. So that's kind of what we get from this plot. And I didn't have to find this projection myself. The algorithm is able to find the projection. Okay, let's see how we're going. So we can also do this. So there's no questions that I can see. We can also do this if we don't have a variable to divide things by. So say we don't plot different colors for different plots of different regions. So we don't know what the regions, we haven't, the data doesn't tell us that. The tour package is still able to find some structure, but trying to find holes in the data. So it's trying to find sort of white regions and it's trying to maximize that. So you can use the guided tool with the holes attribute. And so now we've got no regions. But so at the moment, there's no holes, but then it'll start spinning around in some direction and then try to find a projection of the data that gives us the most holes. Oh, it's not going very fast. Linda can't install tourr. You should be able to install tourr. You won't need to do it right now. I don't suggest you try to follow along with tourr, Linda, but get in touch if you are unable to install it later on. Okay, so it's now starting to find some structure in the data. So you can see now that there's a few holes there. There's a few black regions between the dots, and that's what it's looking for. So it's kind of divided the data. It's projected into a direction, even though I didn't tell it. So actually, this is the green one, and this is the red one, more or less, I think, and this is the black. Even though I didn't tell it that information, it's projected into a direction where there's some separation between the clouds. So that's kind of a good thing to do to find some structure between the data. And then once again, we can see OLC is on this direction. And yeah, so those are the variables that have large gray arrows. Those are the ones that are most influential, especially in the direction that things are separated. So that would be the OLC direction. There. Okay, so we're almost done. But you can do something else quite clever with tourr. You can visualize you can use it to visualize other ways of collapsing data. So for example, PCA and MDS and these kinds of things. So if, usually when you do a PCA, I don't know how familiar you are with PCA, but if you are, then this will apply to you. But if you've done a PCA before, you might get a plot like this. Oops, that's not it. That's not what I want. Stop. If you've done a PCA before, you might get a plot like this. All right, so this is a two-dimensional PCA, a two-dimensional projection. This is the first principal component and the second principal component. And here are they're kind of different colors now, I'm sorry. But this is region 1, so this was black before. And then there's the other region. So that it's actually done a pretty good job at separating the regions. But when you do a PCA, there's actually there's always more than two principal components. You have lots and lots of principal components. So if you want to visualize more than two of the principal components, you can do that using tourr as well. So the way you do that is you do your principal component and then you use animate PCA instead of animate XY. And then the first thing is your scores. And then you give it this argument called PC coefs, which is your loadings. So these are scores and these are loadings. And that will allow you to visualize okay, so maybe we want to do 1 to 4. The first 4, I wonder if this is going to work. The first 4 principal components. So here we can visualize just the first 4 principal components, but actually it's a biplot in the same way that other plot was a biplot. So we don't plot, the axes are not the principal components, but they are the variables themselves. So these are the loadings down here. So Jason asks, can you somehow scale the PCA for order, e.g. PC1 is more meaningful than PC4? That's a question. I don't know the answer, Jason, but possibly, quite possibly. Okay, I'm going to stop this again. I can't even rec the mouse to stop it. Okay, awesome. Alrighty. Yeah, so the biplot, so here we've got the PCA axes, which were not on that tourr, but what was on it were these axes, which are the loadings that you get with a PCA. Okay, so that's it from me. Sorry about it, went a bit over time. I stole shamelessly from Diane Cook's page and misspelled whom. Diane is the author of this R package and she does lots of talks on it. So I just kind of stole some ideas from her. All right, thanks very much. Any more questions? Feel free to sort of put up your hand or type them. You can ask them verbally if you like. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Doesn't sound like there are any questions. Let me just double check. Can I see if there are any hands up? Nancy, can you see if there are any hands up? My computer's freaking out.
Oh, there's one
Jason
person, Jason.
Yeah, Jason, do you want to unmute and just ask?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I missed the beginning, so I mean, because there's no questions, I thought I would just say that rather than putting the text. Is there? Will you have the slides available for us to have a look at?
Yeah. I'll put the slides up, and I'll put links in the slides to the extra bit of code. I mean, you don't actually need much more code, but yeah, I'll put an extra link, and you can have all the code in the slides for sure.
I didn't get any code, like I didn't see anything about code or anything, so I didn't.
No, I wasn't going to get you guys to play along. It's too fast in a half hour to do that. But thanks, Jason.
Gordana, yeah. Go ahead, Jason. You can finish.
It's not important. I was just going to say that the image is probably because of the trying to send it over the internet. The graphics card freaks out. Can't really handle it. That's why it's.
Yeah. It sort of happens a little bit when I do it on Zoom, but never to that extent. So I wasn't expecting it to be a big issue like it was. Yeah, I guess.
It might be better to play it on a laptop and then just point the camera at the laptop.
That's a good idea. I like it. Okay. No worries. Thanks for coming.
Matt asks, can you manipulate the plots manually? So I see like grabbing it and turning it around.
I think you can't quite grab it and turn it around, but you can do more manual things. I haven't quite explored that, but there is like different kinds of tours. Let me just go to the help file. So there is like a manual tour or something. Oh my God, my graphics card is freaking out. Animate. Grand tour, guided tour. There's a guided tour, and I'm not 100% sure what that means, but you can check that out. I think that lets you have a little bit more control over the tour and how it happens.
Paris is asking about longitudinal data. Are you able to show month 1 and shifts onto month 2?
I believe so. If you have a look on Diane Cook's website, she gave a talk not long ago on longitudinal data and tour. So I think that would be the place to look, Paris. I don't know personally how to do it. I'm not like an expert in manipulating the tour, infrastructure, but I think there is a way. Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Okay, if there aren't any other questions, I'd like to invite you to attend a Research Technology Services Happy Hour, which is going on right now. So if you have any questions that Research Technology may be able to help you with, data archiving or accessing high-powered computing services and things like that, you can go to Happy Hour and get some quick guidance and help. Otherwise, keep a lookout for our October seminar topic. I'm sure we'll be coming out with that very soon. And thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, so the slides will be on our Stats Central website. So just go there and find the seminars, and you'll be able to find them maybe tomorrow.
Also, we will post the video as well.
Oh yeah, that's true.